Coming up on Nebraska Stories, Nebraska's growing sport, lacrosse. A farmer's daughter takes the stage. A visit with Charlie Fenster, the farmer's friend. The tree that makes the bow that shoots the arrow. Animation through the stroke of a brush. And stopping horse thieves on the frontier.
Run it down the field and get into an attack.
A lot of people still, you're asking about lacrosse in Nebraska, and they have no clue that we have 10 high school teams going on right now.
In Nebraska, high school football has dominated the headlines, the attention, and the participation numbers for more than 50 years. However, in recent history, we've seen a growth in the variety of sports being offered. Soccer, for example, was recognized as a high school sport in 1988. It's steadily climbed to more than 5,000 student athletes participating throughout Nebraska. However, soccer is not the fastest growing sport in America. That title goes to lacrosse, a sport that's prevalent on both coasts and making a move to the Midwest. With traditional sports owning the limelight in Nebraska, lacrosse is battling for recognition.
Baseball and lacrosse kind of compete with each other, so I know there's a lot of kids going off the sport, a lot of kids get cut. So baseball, they cut a lot of kids, and some of those kids that can't play baseball now looking for another avenue to play.
Football's more of a contact and collision sport. You're really head-to-head, linemen just going right at it, and lacrosse is more of, a contact finesse sport.
The growth of lacrosse in Nebraska will depend largely on developing players, like Millard West's Cameron Burke.
I wanted to be a difference maker in it. I wanted to be somebody that was like, oh, that guy's really good.
He played football and it wasn't his thing, and he played basketball for a few years, and it turns out lacrosse is his number one.
Sophomore year, he kind of switched over and really caught on to lacrosse, and he put his full effort into it, and you can clearly see it. He's showing up, he's putting the extra effort in, he's asking a lot of questions. So it's pretty exciting to have a kid really grasp onto the sport and really want to excel at it.
Cameron's dad, Dave Burke, was a scholarship player for Tom Osborne's Huskers in 1982 through 1984.
I coached him playing football and basketball growing up, as he grew up, and so those were things he kind of gravitated towards one or the other. He moved around, and really it was just something he picked up and started loving.
You'd think from someone who played football for the Huskers and then the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you'd think the dad would say football, football, football. But it's almost the completely opposite.
I think he really appreciates that I'm doing something different, because I'm the first one in my family to play lacrosse, and he really supports it.
I still remember the first time I tried to catch with a lacrosse stick. I threw it and missed it. Gosh, I'm a decent athlete. I finally had to scooch the basket all the way until it was almost like a baseball glove before I could catch it. So as they run down the field and just reach their stick up there and snag, I thought, wow, he's getting really good at this game. And I was like, well, if that's what you love, keep doing it.
Cam really loves the sport, and he wants to play, and I expect big things out of him coming up.
There's no limit to what you can do with the sport. You take what you want to do with it, you can create yourself into any athlete you want.
There's plenty of room for other sports to be on the lacrosse team. I think they've got football players, track athletes, they've got wrestlers, and so, if you want to run around with a helmet and a stick and chase the ball, then I think they'll have you.
While lacrosse is growing across America, Division I programs remain almost exclusively on the East Coast. Big Ten schools like Ohio State and Maryland compete with private schools like Notre Dame, Yale, and Harvard. The efforts to develop the sport in Nebraska are ongoing.
It's starting to grow a little bit here, but again, it's all about exposure, and I think they're providing both young boys and girls the opportunity to get exposure to it. And the more that we can draw attention to it, the better.
We want to see success across the board, whether it's the high school level, under 5, U19, anything.
At Millard West, we have about 70 kids playing right now, and if we get 100 kids next year, we'll have, you know, a varsity team and 3 JV teams. We'll keep growing the sport and keep growing the team on our side and let kids play.
Moon is going to work, and you can hear him if you're listening. There's a little tune he's whistling. It is time to plant the stars.
Farming is hot, egg is hot, food is hot. Where does food come from? Who's growing it? What are those people like?
Quonset, what does that mean, Quonset?
It just seemed like very, you'll pardon the expression, fertile territory for writing and songwriting and an expression of affection and humor.
Day's begun.
You may not think agriculture and music go together, but singer-songwriter Susan Werner has dedicated an entire album to celebrating a core of the Nebraska economy.
Susan mentioned that she was thinking about doing this song cycle about farming, and immediately that was a perfect match for the Leeds Center in that Nebraska is, you know, agriculture and Nebraska are big, and it's certainly meeting arts and agriculture, combining them is the perfect scenario for us to connect with the heart of Nebraska.
I wanted to express some of that feeling in a song, that we are going to live and then pass away, but the soil is here, the landscape is here. Let's honor that, because we're not the last ones to live on this planet.
Through a unique collaboration between the Leeds Center and the University of Nebraska-Lincoln's Institute of Agriculture and Natural Resources, Susan released the album Hayseed to celebrate farms, farmers, and the people that love them.
So the word hayseed is a derogatory term people used to use for rural folks. And I wanted to send up the notion that rural folks used to be the square ones. But now, things have changed, and ag is hot, and there is some prosperity and new opportunities in agriculture.
Nearly weep, but we were just 4-H. We were the FFA. High time they learned how the tables turn. Now they're gonna pay.
I grew up on a working farm in Iowa, so there's that quote from Paul Harvey, I think the radio announcer, right? God made a farmer. But God must have been distracted momentarily, and so screwed up and made another musician. That's what happened to me. I don't have it. My sister has it, but I don't have it, that impulse to stay and to garden and to grow things.
All the city kids.
But I'm a musician, and with music I can express affection and appreciation, and that's the soul of this project, I think.
To spread the music of Hayseed, the Leeds Center set Susan up in their performing arts program called Arts Across Nebraska. It also happened to be the second time Susan toured the state with the program.
Greg, Tara, T-A-R-A.
Arts Across Nebraska, is central to the mission of the Leeds Center. Our mission is to educate, inspire, and entertain the people of Nebraska through the performing arts. And it's really bringing arts and music and theater and dance to people across communities that otherwise wouldn't have an opportunity to experience the arts.
I was on a tour of Arts Across Nebraska. After I got back to Chicago, one of the staff members sent me some feedback that they got from students who took part in these workshops. And one of the little sheets from McCook, Nebraska, and she wrote, "Susan Werner, thank you for coming to this waste of cornfields." How did they form this opinion about where they live, and who is forming that opinion for them? And I wanted to write a correction to that.
Listen to me, kid. Listen to me good. Let me make myself understood. You say you're restless here amidst the miles of corn, in this great state where you were born. Well, don't do like I did and get a great big head and go taking this all for granted. Listen to me, kid, there's something to be said for blooming where you are planted.
We've been able to not only celebrate the heritage of Nebraska through Hayseed, but also connect with people that otherwise we normally don't have a connection with.
To allow me to create new material that talks about these concerns and these characters, and bring this music to the people of Nebraska. It takes a lot of imagination to create something like this, and I've been lucky to be a part of it.
Drive along any country road during growing season, and you'll not only see the hard work of Nebraska farmers, but also the work of people like Charlie Fenster. Now in his mid-90s and busy as ever, Charlie still enjoys doing what he's done all his life, watching the crops.
Well, I think the thing that really stood out for me was the dirty 30s, the Dust Bowl years.
Raised on a farm outside of Chapel, Charlie was 10 years old when the severe dust storms wreaked havoc on the American plains. His dad was a dryland farmer, and wheat the family cash crop. It was the combination of these three things that set Charlie on a path he'd follow throughout his life.
At that time, the university had what they called a farmer operator short course, and it was a short version of the various crops and livestock that could be used on the farm.
Charlie graduated from the University of Nebraska with a 4-year degree in vocational agriculture in 1942. He was teaching and pursuing his master's when he was offered a new job in a groundbreaking field of work.
I was working there in this local conservation office, and the state conservationists came in, and he says, "We'd like to have people like you work for us."
And so, Charlie left his desk job for a position with the Soil Conservation Service, where he began his research on dryland farming. With cooperation from area farmers, research was done on privately held land. Then, in 1955, as the USDA was reorganizing, Charlie had to make a choice between being either a full-time conservationist or a researcher.
The Soil Conservation Service came out and said, "The university wants to hire you to work on the sandy land erosion problems in western Nebraska."
Charlie went to work for the University of Nebraska, where he could continue his efforts in both research and conservation. Living back in the Panhandle, he studied winter erosion, how to make crops grow, and wheat.
We decided to set up dates of planting on various places there in the Panhandle, and the end result was we found that elevation had a lot to do with the length of growing season. It took us quite a while to figure that out. It pointed out to us there was a real difference in the environment at different locations. So we finally tied it to elevation. And it's still used today.
The results of this research is the steady rise in wheat yield per acre, from 11 bushels in 1956 to over 40 today. Charlie's also been at the forefront of developing no-till farming, even assisting in the design of new equipment. And Charlie's work hasn't just benefited Nebraska farmers, but farmers across the world. So, when the University of Nebraska told Charlie they wanted to name a new research facility after him, he had only one thing to say.
As I told the chancellor, I said, if this enhances dryland research and extension work in western Nebraska, go for it. Otherwise, don't you do it. That was the very words I used to it.
How could anyone argue with Charlie? Not that anyone wanted to.
When I started out with the university, they told me right to begin with, you are going to be on a joint appointment, both research and extension. And I think that's the way it ought to be. The new building is to enhance the facilities to get people to come out here and work on critical problems throughout the year. Graduate students, it's a real good place to send them out. That's a tremendous asset for their development.
Charlie Fenster, the farmer's son who grew up to make the world a little bit better for all of us.
Throwing a tomahawk, learning archery.
It was their main long-range weapon for most Native Americans. Planes, anyway.
It was faster than the rifle, so.
Yeah.
Because they had to reload the rifles when they could just pull out another arrow.
Oh, you want to be a warrior, huh?
What better than to get out here in this beautiful place, which is part of our homeland we're standing on, where our ancestors lived.
This is part of their heritage. They don't know it, but it's new to them.
Put everything else out of your mind. All you're going to focus on is that little orange dot down there.
Hopefully at the end of the day, me and Max hit the red dot.
As hard as you can. 2 fingers. As long as the point is sharp, it will go through the chest cavity of a deer, an elk, or a buffalo.
The kids here are learning where we came from.
Here's how I shoot. Here's how Lakotas shot their bow. I use 2 fingers, and you don't shoot it straight up and down. You hold the bow at an angle, pull, and shoot. See? Not quick.
This is different than what some of the kids knew with the compound bows and all. And some of the boys thought they were going to just get out there and hit it, and they didn't do so well. So it teaches you to be humble.
I just think it's so cool because I didn't have this when I was growing up. And
They train you from when you're a child to do this, but seeing as how we've lost some of our culture, it's not that way anymore.
This at one time was a living thing. So when we go out and we cut that tree, the first thing we do before we cut it is we leave an offering, and we ask its forgiveness. Amichiktujayo, forgive me. And then I cut it. And then after that, I'm honor bound to make the best bow I can. It's a cultural perspective that I think is important for everybody to know about. Certainly young people.
We all have something in common, and that's our past.
As you come through the target,
all right.
and hopefully it sticks.
I can't throw it.
So how do we restore our hearts and bring back all that?
There will come a moment when somebody will need to be a leader.
Be proud of who you are. Be proud of where you came from. Know your family, know your history. What Joseph said about being proud to be Native.
There you go.
I hope that they'll take that back with them.
I'm a painter and an animator. I have a painting. I have an image that I've painted. I take a picture of it. I change it a little bit. I take another picture. I do that several thousand times over. Over the course of a few months, and I have an animation in the end. Immediately questions always follow. What do they look like? What are the stories about? Or are they stories? The Ancient Mariners, a paintimation that I've made, starts off with a sea turtle going by in the frame. Then that gets sort of taken out of frame by a hand and brought on whole ship. I picked up the camera mainly because my brother was playing with the camera. He was making home movies, so I joined in and started helping him make these little mini productions, and then I started making my own. Really, I was making art to a certain extent then, and making art for me is really about creating worlds and stories, and it's a way of playing. I didn't actually start animating again until after graduate school. So stop motion came into play as a way to document steps, and it was by accident. This is a way for me to tell a story, but also to examine the process of painting. My wife Anne, we work together to create animations. She's using a lot of small toys and antique toys. She places these in relationship to one another and creates content that way. We both want there to be a high standard, and we really want the work to be good. It frees me in a way from having to generate the immediate first frame, and then I can work off of that first frame that she's created. It's hard to paint over the painting sometimes, and I have to make sure that that frame isn't too precious. But if I'm keeping in mind what my goal is and how the story is going to evolve or how the sequence is going to evolve, it makes it just a little bit easier. That challenge keeps me going, makes me want to make more animations. Especially if I hit play, the painting becomes alive and it's moving. And it's really about that, making paint move.
Kearney was a wild town in the late 1870s. Cattle drive cowboys hitting the bars first thing in the morning and riding up and down the streets shooting their guns into the air at night. Townsfolk had reason to be concerned, especially when it came to protecting their horses. In a time before everyone had cars and tractors, horses served both roles. So folks from Kearney's Center Township on the east side of town got together and formed.
It was officially called the Anti-Horse Thief Society.
Marty Anderson volunteers at the Buffalo County Historical Society. That's where she came across this story and the well-worn official journal of the Anti-Horse Thief Society. A rather lengthy constitution sets dues at $1 a year for what was part posse, part insurance consortium. It also required members to chase down stolen horses.
If it took more than a day to search for this horse, then they were paid $2 a day for being away from home and doing this. If the horse could not be found, then the owner was paid. Some 3 neutral members of the society who were acquainted with the horse. Now, I don't know how often we get acquainted with horses, but they had to be acquainted with the horse or the mule, then could establish a value up to $150, and they would pay the owner then for the loss of his horse. I did notice in their bylaws that if a horse thief were captured, he was to be brought back and turned over to the authorities. So they were clarifying that officially they weren't lynching any horse thieves.
Officially. Actually, it appears there wasn't much action at all, although society members were paid expenses for pursuing a horse thief in 1882. Most of their time was spent holding meetings, setting dates for more meetings, making rules about meetings and dues, and debating things farmers still debate today, like which crops are more profitable. By 1885, they appeared to be all meetinged out, and the Anti-Horse Thief Society died a quiet death.
I think the danger of thievery was pretty much past, and so they stopped paying dues. They just didn't, they just kind of dried up.
Now, the Anti-Horse Thief Society is a small footnote of Nebraska history that's interesting to Anderson because of what it predated.
We thought we had a new idea with insurance companies. I don't think so.
Watch our stories online at netnebraska.org/Nebraska Stories and go to Facebook to like us and leave a comment. Join the Nebraska Stories conversation. Nebraska Stories is funded by the Margaret and Martha Thomas Foundation, the Nebraska Office of Highway Safety, Humanities Nebraska, the Nebraska Tourism Commission, and First Nebraska Bank. Sustained funding for arts coverage is provided by the H. Lee and Carol Gendler Charitable Fund, the Nebraska Arts Council, and Nebraska Cultural Endowment.